welcome back. So this is going to be my review of Siege and Storm by Lee Bardugo, which is the second book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy. This book is actually my favorite of the trilogy, so I can't wait to review it. There will be a spoiler part of the video, but don't worry, I'll let you know when that is. So let's just get into it. So the book opens up where it left off. Elena and Mal are hiding out in a city, and then they both go back to their little rundown inn, tavern, apartment, whatever. And they are captured by the Darkling and his people. So in this scene, we actually find out that the Darkling can now create shadow monsters. Something happened in the fold. He does have like scars over him, and he looks sicker. But he's using his powers, you know, it makes him sick. But yeah, he can now create the shadow. I believe they're called like shadow fold or whatnot. He can now create them. So his power has only grown since the last time we saw him, and I thought that was a really good addition to his character. And I like that it happened within the first chapter in the book. It really let the reader know, hey, this dude is even more powerful than when we last saw him. He's now even a bigger threat. And, you know, it just makes the stakes higher, essentially. And it really pushes Elena in terms of the second amplifier and all that kind of stuff. So, anyway, yeah, she's taken captive, and they're put on this boat, which is captained by a pirate, I guess you could say, by the name of Sturmhond? Sturmhond. I can read it just fine, I just can't pronounce it. So yeah, anyway, this captain, I immediately liked him off the bat. He's so cocky, but like in a funny way. It actually added a lot, and he can take these words that Elena means like as an insult to him and just flip them and create them into a compliment, which she found annoying, but I loved it 100%. Yeah. Oh, and side note, before they were captured and they were in this town, she mentioned her appearance again. She did it again. I have to read it to you. The washwoman turned to look and then exchanged glances of disbelief. I knew what they saw. A scrawny girl with stringy, dull brown hair and sallow cheeks. Fingers stained orange from packing Jurda. I've never been much to look at, and weeks of not using my power had taken their toll. So yeah, we're back on that subplot again of the skinny, brown-haired girl. Yeah, and she tries to explain it like saying her powers are what have been, you know, helping her look pretty and stuff like that. But when she doesn't use them, she reverts back to the scrawny, pale, you know, whatever. And so she tries to explain that like that's what's making her look like that, but it's just unneeded. It's so unneeded, and it doesn't like. It almost makes sense if it was just her, then it would make sense. But then you have to think about the fact that the Darkling is, you know, shallow-cheeked and pale and almost wasting away because he's using his power. I don't understand how not using your power can do the same results as using your power. It just doesn't make that much sense to me, but sorry, besides the point. So anyway, yeah, they're on this boat. Genya is also on this boat, and she has her own kefta, which is the robes that they wear to represent, you know, what Grisha they are. Hers is like none other before. It's blue, and it has like red designs on it and stuff like that, which represents poison, because she is revealed poisoned. It is revealed that she poisoned the King of Ravka, which isn't a spoiler because it happens within like the first 1/4 of the book. So anyway, yeah, she's like, yeah, I've been doing this for years. You know, the poison finally kicked in. He's dying essentially, which has been helping the Darkling, because now the Darkling the Darkling is essentially, you know, once the king dies, Darkling can take over the throne. Despite the king and queen having a son, he can still take over it. So yeah, that's helping him. So yeah, it looks like her best friend has been, you know, betrayed her or whatnot. And they're looking for the amplifier, which is like a sea whale serpent type of thing. And Mal, of course, tracks it down because tracking. So yeah, they find it and they attack it. But before really anything can happen, then Stormhard, Sturm. I don't know. He bring more boats come about and they attack the Darkling ship. So the original crew that had been helping the Darkling, that were the pirates, they go into the other boat. Ginya helps Mal and Elena escape onto the boat, and they actually manage to drag the amplifier onto their boat. So the Darkling tries to pursue them, but their boat is so damaged that it can't. And his powers with the creature evidently has a limit, so they get outside of the limit and he can no longer attack them with the creatures. So they're looking down at this amplifier, or the sea whip, or whatever they call it. Yeah, the sea whip. And they give her the dagger to kill it because, you know, when she kills it, she gets power or whatnot. She can't kill it! Again, I'm just like, did you learn nothing from your encounter with the stag? Like, the Darkling lady has more power than you. He's in control of the throne, essentially. Because you couldn't kill a stag, and now that you can make the playing field a bit more even with a second amplifier, you still tell me that you don't want to kill it? Priorities, honey, priorities. You've got to kill it. So he ends up taking the knife, clutching her hands around it, and they both plunge it into the monster. So she technically killed it. Yep. Okay. So yeah, we get a bit more introduced to the crew besides the captain. And Tolia and Tamar are twins, and yeah, one's really buff and the other one's good with the axes, and they're perfectly fine characters. I like them just fine. Yeah, I enjoyed them in this book. In the third book, they kind of lost me in terms of interest, but in here, I really quite enjoyed them. So she puts the scales onto her wrists, almost like shackles. That's how she describes it. So now she has 2 amplifiers on her body, which is more than any other Grisha has ever had. So she's now the most powerful Grisha, besides the Darkling, in existence. So yeah, that's nice. And just as a side note, I began to take, tabs on this, but then I decided to not to because I was enjoying the book and I didn't want to, think about, oh, where I'm going to tab next, blah, blah, blah. So I just decided to enjoy this one. I didn't even put a singular tab on Ruin and Rising. I've decided to only tab books that, I read. I'm like, let's just tab this, So yeah, the side note, sorry. So on the boat, Elena actually discovers that one of the Darklings, like journals or whatnot, has been taken, I believe, by the captain. And so she's reading it, or maybe she took it herself, I don't particularly remember. But yeah, she's reading it, and it talks about all these saints and whatnot. And again, you have to remember that the Darkling is immortal. He is centuries old, so he knows all this history personally. Like, he's lived through it. So, his journal is more informative than the books that, are in the library. That's how they found the sea whip. That's how they knew where to look, because of his journal. I just don't really understand how he could let something like that out of his grasp. If I had a journal that literally told me where all 3 amplifiers might be able to be found, along with a rich history of the saints, I would keep that thing, on me, like there was no tomorrow. There'd be no way that they would be getting out of my sight. And yet this immortal man, this centuries old, boy, essentially, who is honestly one of the smartest characters in this entire book, I love him, loses his journal. I don't know. That's not really a gripe per se. I just found that extremely funny to think about. And, just as a side note, before they escaped, Elena and the Darkling had scenes, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Again, I love their scenes together. And the Darkling is threatening without being threatening, if that makes sense. He's so calm, he doesn't have to say anything. Like even when he's like, "Oh, I'll stab him," it's not like threatening or yelling or anything. It's just calm, and that I like it when villains are like that, when they aren't over emotionalized, where everything is related to anger or whatnot. It's literally just heartless almost. And the Darkling, that makes sense for him because he's had a lifetime to learn how to be heartless and all that kind of stuff due to past experiences. So yeah, I really like the thing, and we get one of the funniest lines of this entire book. There's another moment in here that actually made me laugh. I don't think enough people give credit to Leigh Bardugo for how funny she is, but this is hilarious. So, again, sorry, we're going back, but I just had to mention this. So, Elena and the Darkling are talking, and Elena goes, "I wonder what would happen if I shoved him overboard. Sure, he's an immortal boy, centuries old, but can he swim?" I don't know why, but that's just like the funniest thing to me. That's just so funny. Like, I love Elena's like quirky, like sassiness in this book. Like, it really hits home for me in this one in particular. Like, I just loved it. I'm not gonna lie, Elena is not my favorite character because again, she is the type of protagonist that's forced into something. She's like, I don't want to do this, blah blah blah. So she's not my favorite character and all that kind of stuff, but man, is she funny! So, Stormhad decides that they should go back to Ravka, and he actually has ships that can fly, which is actually a really cool idea. So they get into these ships and they cross into the Unsea, which is like a dark place where the creatures of the fold live. Also, so Elena has to fend them off with light. So they're passing through there, and then she sees the Darkling right in front of her, like sitting on a boat, and she falters for a second, and the creatures like attack the boat before she can, get the thing up, and they end up damaging it. But I thought that was really cool, the fact that the amplifier like connected them, because it was mentioned before, but it was never really like delved into. But yeah, the Darkling can appear to her like anytime he wants. He can actually like physically touch her. No one else can see him. Like I actually really like that concept, and it creates for a good dynamic between the two. So the ships end up crashing into a lake, and they all get out and they make it to land. And guards meet them from the palace, and I don't consider this a spoiler, considering that it happens around this time in the book, which is like 1/4 of the book. I guess I could move into my spoiler part now, but it's not like officially a spoiler part. So if you don't want to have this little bit of the story spoiled, then I honestly have no idea. I don't think it's a spoiler. I don't think it's a spoiler. I mean, it happens so early on in the book. I'm just gonna say it. So Stormhad, the captain, is Nikolai, who is the lost prince of Ravka. The prince abandoned his military fleet or whatnot, and basically became this pirate that has been keeping Ravka, like the waters and such, stay safe from people who are trying to invade it or do illegal things in it. So yeah, he's Nikolai. I love Nikolai with a passion. Like, I love the captain, but no, Nikolai beats the captain that he was. Like, Nikolai is every bit of sass that I need in my life right about now. Like, he's just compelling as can be. I love him. Although, this is where the love square comes in. So, you can see it throughout the progression of the book that Nikolai begins to have feelings for Elena. They're forced to be in this political relationship to make it appear as though Ravka is a bit more powerful than they were before. So basically, he's returning and the people are like, oh, it's him, blah, blah, blah. And he has Elena just like at his side, and it's like, this will look good, don't worry, blah, blah, blah. So that's when, things start to arise. There's a square! Turns to a square. The triangle is bad enough, but this love square is just haunting me, like, to an extent. So, of course, Mal gets jealous throughout this entire thing, and he handles it. This is when I start to dislike Mal, like, with a passion. Mal gets jealous, and he handles it like someone in middle school does. he doesn't talk to her. He doesn't try to talk things out with her. He kind of just pouts in a corner. He like purposely like goes off with another crowd and like lets her know, hey, I don't want to be around you. I felt like there could have been a better way to handle that kind of question mark. It was just childish. Like every time that they do talk, it turns into like a fight or whatnot. And like I was rooting for the relationship in the first book, but in this one I'm like, oh my goodness, this is terrible. But that being said, again, the love triangle, in terms of the Darkling, Elena, and Nikolai is done really well. I can see Elena being with Nikolai. I can see Elena being with the Darkling. Like, I'm rooting for either one. I'd be happy with either one. So that part of it was done really well. It's just this time around, the fourth corner of the square was a bit annoying. Really annoying. Super annoying. So as they're kind of doing like this political tour, that's really the only thing I can think of to describe it. They start to see remnants that the people are electing Elena essentially as a saint. Like they see her, they fall down, and they kneel to her, they worship her, they try to touch her. Like it's essentially like a god complex. That's the only way that I can really describe it to you. Like they're treating her like she's like the savior, which granted she is. But they're worshiping her, really worshiping her a bit more than they were doing so for the Darkling. I think they're going full fledged with Elena. Like they like the Sun Summoner. So that's another added stress that she now has, is that these people are worshiping her, they're looking up to her, they're expecting her to be able to fix all their problems and heal them in their country and whatnot, which granted is added stress, but actually no, as I think about it, she takes it relatively well. Like I understand in this one a bit more how she doesn't really want to do that, because she's not a saint, she's not a saint. She doesn't really want to be this religious figure that everyone's making her out to be. She doesn't think that she can really help these people to the extent that they're expecting her to. But, she still does it. She sucks it up. She only complains to a few people. She doesn't even really try to get out of it. Like, that's what I didn't like about Katniss. She tried to get out of being, the savior multiple times. Elena sucks it up. She deals with it. Granted, she complains a lot, but she still deals with it. And she still tries her best to fix this country and the problems and to take out the Darkling. So I do have to give congrats there. Yeah, it's a cliche, but this one was handled a bit well than I've seen in others, so yeah, I actually didn't mind that aspect of it. Also, another side note is in this book, these time skips are ridiculous. Like, they skip entire, seasons. Like, at one point, it's winter, and then it's now it's summer. I'm just like, wow! Wow, I just don't understand why the plot couldn't have taken place, around the same time, maybe a week or so past. But no, they skip over quite a bit, and I don't understand why the skips are there, because it makes the story not flow as well, because it's more broken up. Oh, okay, 6 months have passed. That's cool. I guess nothing has really happened during that time. I don't know. That's just a side opinion. And all three books kind of do that. They skip around huge time jumps a lot. But it's okay. It's a bit annoying, but it's fine. So Elena and Nikolai, they continue to have more moments together, and I actually really like them. One of my most favorite things, in case you haven't caught on, I like politics in YA fantasy. I love the politics of, ascending to the throne, nobles, peasants. I love that kind of stuff with a passion. So one of my favorite conversations that they have is Elena, when she's asking him, why do you care about the throne so much, or the crown? And I'll read what they say. She says, why is the crown so important to you? I asked. Why go through all of this? He says, is it so hard to believe I'm going to actually care what happens to this country? And she says, honestly, yes. He says, I guess I like fixing things, he said. I always have. It wasn't much of an answer, but somehow it rang true. So, I don't know. That's such a simplistic conversation, and yet it tells you, it gives Nikolai more of a depth. That he left his country to help his country, and now he's coming back. He doesn't particularly like being in the spotlight, being this prince, or he likes the spotlight. He just doesn't like the war that him and his brother have going on, because he does have a brother who is next in line for the throne, but his brother's not going to be good at it, so they're trying to find a way to make him step down, because Nikolai is clearly the better ruler, but his brother doesn't want to, because his brother wants, all the power and stuff. So, yeah, that scene, it just added to his character so much, and I really enjoyed that. It wasn't overcomplicated, it was just simplistic, and you could really see how Nikolai is being, torn in half here, essentially. So yeah, those conversations between the two, along with the other conversations between Elena and the Darkling, they're good. It's just when her and Mal talk is when everything falls apart. So some of the Grisha, they begin to come to the little palace, and they're basically just surrendering. They either don't want anything to do with this war, they were never involved, or they can see what the Darkling is really doing right now and they don't want anything to do with it. So they're allowing themselves to be captured and all that kind of stuff. So there's another power play that I like in here is the inhumanization of the Grisha. Some people think that they're not human because they have these special powers. So they're treated really poorly despite, being able to, control wind and fire. They're ridiculously outnumbered because they've been hunted down for years, and it makes you feel for the Grisha, and you start to understand a bit more why the Darkling is doing what he's doing, because he wants the Grisha to be what they once were. He doesn't want his people hiding anymore. He's tired of hiding. He's tired of being like this thing that's just showcased at the noble events and whatnot. He doesn't like that. I don't know what scene it is. It might have been in this book, it might have been in the previous one, but I believe there's a scene where he eventually explains to Elena, I don't like being this party trick that they just pull out. I'm much more than that. I'm going to show them. I want to take over and I'm going to show them. So yeah, the power play relates to all the characters, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. This book, as I've stated before, it has a lot of politics running for it, and I really like it. Some people didn't like it. I've read the reviews. They thought it was kind of boring, but I didn't. I actually really enjoyed it, and I thought it was really interesting. And this is the other funny scene that I was talking about. So this is back when they first arrive at the little palace and the Golden Dome or whatnot. And Elena gets really mad, and she accidentally uses a cut, and she, breaks apart the ceiling of the thing, and she's like, fix it, and she storms off, and she opens the door, and I just love it. Hang on. And she storms away, and I don't know why, but I found this scene ridiculously funny. I literally had to pause and laugh out loud. She said, I strode across the room and threw open the doors to the Darkling's chambers, giving silent thanks that they weren't locked. We love Elena's sassiness. It's just so good. I just love it. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm done. So now that they're back, Elena goes to visit Bagra. The old woman, the mother with the walking stick. She goes to visit her and see what has happened to her, and Elena actually finds out that her eyes have been taken out. So the Darkling forever made his mother see blackness. I thought this was really good character development for the both of them, especially for the Darkling, seeing that he was willing to go through these extents for revenge, but he wasn't really willing to kill his mother, anything like that. Yeah, he took out her eyes, but he didn't capture her. He let her be. He just did that and left, I guess. So yeah, I thought that was really well done, and of course, the mother with the walking stick is as cranky as ever, and it hits Elena perfectly with it each time, despite not being able to see. It was just, it was so good, so good. I love this character so much. So after this talk, we begin to see kind of Elena's power hungriness, if that makes sense. She leaves the mother with the walking stick, and she thinks to herself, if I wanted to, I could have her dragged out of the house and tortured, because I have that power now, but she doesn't. This is another type of power play that I like. I like talking about politics. I also like the morally gray character, in case you haven't picked up on that. I love morally gray characters, and this is the beginning of Elena's grayness, if that makes sense. She she begins to think more like that. She begins to understand the Darkling a bit more, but understand that there needs to be another way in order to do what he wants. So I like those thoughts that she has because they are darker. This book introduces a bit more of the darker themes, which I really like in my book. Shadow and Bone was kind of, light and fluffy, and this one is kind of like, no, this is a war. This is what's going on. Everyone's suffering, and I actually don't mind that in my books. I prefer to have that in my books. So yeah, I actually really like this Power Planet. It's one of the reasons why this is my favorite. So a while later, Elena decides to go outside into the city in a terrible disguise, to see what the people are dealing with, and she gets found out, and this crowd nearly tramples her to death, essentially, because they just want a piece of her. I don't know. So later on, there's this party or something that's going on. So her and Mal attend it kind of in secret. They don't really want anyone to know that they're there, along with the twins, Toya and Tamara. And so the Apparat, the creepy religious dude from the first book, he appears. He talks about an uprising, and some of his people, make themselves known to her, and then they disappear without a trace. No one can find them after that. So yeah, that was a nice little scene to have in the middle of the book. I don't like the Apparat. For me, he's just not a good character. He's more in the third book, but in this book, he really isn't there. His character is almost unneeded and unnecessary, but I do understand why he is there. I just don't like it. I just don't like that aspect to the book. So Mal and Elena, they continue to fight. And Mal kisses her, and she flinches because I think the Darkling is there or something. And yeah, so they have this fight. I'll read it to you because I honestly can't do it justice. Wait! I rushed after him and reached for his arm. He turned around so fast I almost careened into him. Don't, Elena. You don't understand, I said. You flinched. Tell me you didn't. It wasn't because of you. Mal laughed harshly. I know you haven't had much experience, but I've kissed enough girls to know what that means. Don't worry, it won't happen again. The words hit me like a slap. He slammed the door behind me. I stood there, staring at the closed doors. I reached out and touched the bone handle. Do you see what I mean? They kind of he especially handles these interactions, these fights like a middle schooler. He doesn't try to talk about it. He brings up the past that he's made out with a bunch of girls and all that kind of stuff. I just don't like his character. I just don't. And after that fight, the Darkling actually appears in the room, and he kisses her cheek. So yeah, I don't even know what to say. Again, I love the scenes with them. I just don't like the love triangle and the fact that Mal isn't involved with it. But yeah, the Darkling and her scenes, especially the romantic ones, I really like, because you can tell that they're both kind of really struggling to determine if they want one another or not. And he's kind of using her or manipulating her, and she's trying not to get manipulated. So that was really done. So nice. So also, I forgot to mention this, but when all the other Grisha are kind of returning and turning themselves in, Zoya actually is one of them. And, they accept her back. And like I stated before, I didn't like Zoya in the previous book. She almost acted like a high school student. She was very petty. Didn't like her. This book, I actually really liked her. Her character growth in here is amazing. It's even better in the third book. So I actually really liked her. Same thing with David. They both grow tremendously as characters. And so David has been working on this weapon for Elena to use against the creatures if they're attacked. And it's basically just this giant, reverse or magnifying glass or whatnot. It's like a pan or something, and she hits it, and the light reflects off of it, and it creates, a burning light beam, if that makes sense. So basically, they can just burn the creatures out of the sky. I did an awful job explaining that, but you get what I mean. You get what I mean. So yeah, they get the weapon, and it turns out that it works, so everyone celebrates, and they jump into the pond and all that. And of course, Mal is sulky and terrible and is great. So, I just continue to hate his character more and more. Each time he appeared, I was like, oh no. It gets worse. It gets worse. So, Elena begins to notice that there are bruises on Mal's face and all that kind of stuff, and she's like, what are you doing? And he's just like shoving her away. He's like, I don't want to talk about it. So, yeah, she follows him one night with the help of Tamara, I believe, or Toya, whichever one. Tamara? I think it was Tamara. So she follows Mal out to this barn one night, and he's fighting just random people. He's fighting like Grishas, and like the squaller beats him up or whatnot, but he ends up winning, and it's so unneeded. Like, it's the subplot that they've been building up throughout this book is just unneeded. While she's in this barn, Mal wins the fight, and Zoya runs up to him and hugs him, my bad. And Elena thinks, just push him away. And I'm just like, honey, you've been pushing him away this entire time. Like, he's allowed to do other things with other people. Like, it's fine. So, yeah, she gets jealous of Zoya. So, yeah, that leads into a huge fight, and I just gotta read it out to you. It says, you're the captain of my guard. I said, blundering through the trees. You shouldn't be brawling like some commoner. Mal caught hold of my arm and yanked me around. I am a commoner, he growled. Not one of your pilgrims or your Grisha or some pampered watchdog who sits outside your door all night on the off chance you might need me. Of course not, I seethed. You have much better things to do with your time, like getting drunk and shoving your tongue down Zoya's throat. At least she doesn't flinch when I touch her, he spat. You don't want me, so why do you care if she does? That's my point exactly. That's all I'm saying. And then she says, I don't, I said, but the words came out as a sob. They continue to fight, and Mal hits her with this card, which makes no sense. Do you know how much I want that? To be with you without rank or walls or anything between us. Just to be common again together. He shook his head. But you won't do it, Elena. I will, I said, tears spilling over my cheeks. Don't kid yourself. You'll just find a way back. I don't know how to fix this, I say desperately. You can't fix it, he shouted. This is the way it is. Did it ever occur to you that maybe you were meant to be a queen and I'm not meant to be anything at all? So basically he's asking her to step down from this role, being a saint, trying to rebuild Ravka, prevent a world war, or a civil war at least for them, from happening. He's asking her to do that for him. And, I get annoyed when this happens, but usually it's because it's the main character that's doing it. But, Blue, stop snoring. Usually it's the main character that does this. But like I said, in this one, she doesn't like it, but she sucks it up and she does it. That's what I like. In this one, Mal is the one that's like, don't do it. I don't want you to do it. And she's like, I have to. Like, you don't understand. Like, it just makes no sense. He's literally asking her to leave everything behind, abandon an entire country, allow the Darkling to take over. It just makes no sense. Like, I really don't like Mal in this book. He's so selfish and he acts like a middle schooler. I just don't get it. In the first book, he was so solid. I don't understand what happened. I loved him in the first book, and then this happened. I'm really not trying to be mean here. Believe me, I just don't like it. It's no. The group is at another meeting, and then all of a sudden, these creatures, the Darkling creatures, attack them. Nikolai's brother is killed. A bunch of other people that were like side characters that I never really got to know or care about are killed. And all the weapons that David has created are destroyed because there are just so many of them. So basically, Tamara and Talia, they run into a church and they're like, here, follow us. They reveal a secret passage, and the Darkling, finds them and whatnot. And so Elena decides to sacrifice herself to save everyone else. So basically, Elena, I believe, like, she touches the Darkling or something like that. And because they're connected from the amplifier, she reverses the power. So, you know how I mentioned how him creating the creatures weakens him, like, a lot. So she begins to create all these creatures, and it's, like, literally killing him. Like, he's dying and he's begging her to stop. And it actually really got me feeling for him. I'm like, oh no, please stop, Elena, don't kill the Darkling. Which is twisted, but it was so true. I was like, please don't let him die. I knew he wasn't because it's the third book, but you know. And so Elena tells the creatures that she's created, bring it down, essentially. So she's just telling them to destroy the building that they're in, bring it down on top of them, kill them all. Or kill her and the Darkling at least. But before that can happen, Mal, picks up Elena, carries her through the secret passageway, and the monsters collapse the building onto the Darkling. And again, kind of like the first book, he's kind of presumed dead, but she's like, I doubt he died. So, it's just it's a bit of a repeat, but it's fine, it's fine. So they go into this underground kind of hideaway, I guess, and this is where we find the Apparat with a bunch of other Grisha and a bunch of other people preparing, and that's where he and his people had disappeared to that night at the party. They had gone into a secret passageway. They've been hiding out here for a while so they won't be captured and killed. And it's confusingly explained that Tamara and Talia were in on it this entire time, that they were in alliance with the Apparat and that they knew what was going on and that they set up him to find her at the party or for her to be trampled in the streets by like announcing that she was there or something, which I guess is a good twist, but it doesn't really make any sense to me. For me, personally, it was the slightest bit confusing. I was like, okay, you could have taken that out and nothing really would have changed, but it is what it is. So yeah, that's basically how the book ends. And by the way, Elena now has white hair because she used the power. So she's down there, she's almost dying, and she has to be helped back to health and all that fun stuff. So yeah, that's how the book ends. In case you couldn't tell, this is my favorite book of the three. I actually really enjoyed reading it. I love the politics. I love the new characters in it. I don't like Mal, but that's really it, besides the love square. But yeah, I liked it. I gave this one 4 stars, but it's probably leaning towards more like a 4.2 or something like that. So yeah, it's up there. Thank you as always for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And if you haven't already, follow me on my other social media such as Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Those will be listed down in the description below. It'll really mean a lot to me if you follow them. Thank you again for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye.